Hello, and welcome to Meet the Author, sponsored by Author Event Network in partnership with the Bremerton Public Access Television. I am your host, Guy Morris. Author Event Network is a nonprofit association of local authors who sign books at local festivals, fairs, and events. Our guest today is Keith Madsen. Welcome, Keith. How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Oh, wonderful to have you. You've been a member now for almost a year. Happy to have you on the interview process. And this is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a great privilege to do.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Well, let's start by let's start with something generic. Let's tell the audience about what inspired you first to become an author.
You know, that goes back to really middle school and high school.
Oh,
At that
a long
time,
story.
I enjoyed writing fiction and reading fiction, and because of that, I started to want to write that. So in middle school, I either wanted to be a center fielder for the Kansas City Athletics, which shows you about how old I am,
Yeah.
or a writer. And the writer,
Those two go really well together, you know. Football player, author, you know, we see this all the time.
yeah. So that I enjoyed the reading so much, and it spurred my imagination. I really enjoyed using my imagination, and I always have.
Yeah.
And so that's probably why I wanted to do some writing. I enjoy the process of creating and using my imagination.
Excellent, excellent. Well, tell us a little bit about what genres you write and why you chose that genre.
You know, I kind of avoid the idea of genre because that may be why I don't sell as many books as I'd like. But I think in terms of, I like writing books that combine romance. Romance is not the heart of the story, but it is part of the story, with a story that dares to believe that the world can be better than it is. That's what I try to write. And I write it so that hope becomes the center of it. I believe that the world today especially is hungering for hope in the midst of all the dark things that are happening right now. So I think fiction has that option of being able to envision something that brings hope to people.
Well, I certainly think that's true. It can bring us to a lot of different emotional places, and I think that's what we're looking for, is some sort of emotional hook with the audience, and whatever that is. Well, what would you consider, besides romance then, which I think is having a little bit of romantic element, even if it's an action thriller, can be a little bit of a balancing act, right?
It is.
And because you don't want it to be focused on the romance, but you want there to be some meaningful relationships there that you can connect to. I think there's a lot of authors that write dystopic novels where you're not really liking any of the characters very much by the time you're done. I think a little romance can help soften that. Well, tell us about some of the other key themes that you want your readers to discover when you're reading your books.
I think a key theme for me happens to do with Margaret Mead's quote. Said, "Never doubt that a small group of committed citizens can change the world. It's the only thing that ever has." I think that is a kind of a core concept for me as I write some of these novels, is to envision something that can change the world. And you know, I'm humble enough to know that my novels aren't going to make big changes in all the things that are happening. I just hope that it can change things just a little bit, especially in the heart of a person, in their ability to hope, their ability to be a part of the solution.
That's an excellent question. So that's an excellent response. So you're not necessarily looking for people to read your book and world peace to happen.
Yeah, well, it would be nice.
That would be nice, okay. Almost better than the royalties.
Almost better.
Almost better.
Almost better.
There you go. There you go. Well, what was it about your personal experiences that made you feel compelled to share in books? And are your books, to what extent are your books based on true stories?
Yeah, that's good. Those are good questions. It depends on each book. For instance, The Sons and Daughters of Toussaint. I started that novel because I went down to Haiti on 5 different mission trips. We went down there to walk alongside the people of Haiti and get to know them and work with them And I fell in love with the people. I fell in love with those people. Wonderful people. And in that process, I started to think, well, you know, the struggles of Haiti, they're not just statistics.
Yeah.
They're not just this far-off issue.
They're
it
human.
Became a personal issue for me. I went down there, we helped them build a grade school, and education is at the heart of changing the world, I think. And I didn't have any great skills in building. I had to learn certain things, but I was working with them. The Haitian architects and construction people were doing the work, and I was hauling cement and hauling rock and all sorts of things and getting all sweaty in the hot sun. And I was talking to the people and listening to the people and getting to know the people. So that sparked an interest. And in the process of going down there, I also would read about the history of Haiti a little bit. Toussaint Louverture, who is the father of the Haitian Revolution. And I envisioned this novel as one where a descendant of Toussaint looks around him at the world, at the Haitian countryside, and he sees all the suffering and all the poverty and the despair. And he says, is this what my ancestor and all these Haitian slaves who fought for their freedom, is this what they died for?
Yeah.
And so this ancestor says, I need to revive the vision. That's where it's got to come from. I got to revive that vision. And so that's what he does. And he has this vision of changing the world where he lives in. Now he does have a romance aspect. He does fall in love with this beautiful Haitian young woman. The problem is this Haitian young woman has a vision of her own. She wants to go to New York and become a runway model. And so they fall in love with each other with two different visions. And so this is, it does get to the experience question, but it also gets to the vision, the question of the reader. Many of our readers, many of our young couples today have to struggle with two different visions. You know, it used to be that the woman would go wherever the man went. You know, his vision was their vision. Yeah, that's not the way it is today. So, you know, they have two different visions. They still love each other. They got to find a way to blend them, and that needs to happen in this story too. That's part of what happens is they find a way to blend their visions a little bit. So that's one experience that I've had. Another experience I've had relates to Searching for Eden. This book starts with the death of a 14-year-old girl with cancer. And I'm a hospital chaplain right now. I'm the chaplain of the Confluence Health Hospital in Wenatchee. But I've been a pastor for over 40 years and visited people in the hospital, and dying families and mourning families. So this starts with the issue of when you have a loss like that, can life be good again? And that's the question, because in the young woman who dies, just before she dies, she asked her dad, you know, to read about the story of the Garden of Eden, and she says, and then when everything was there was very good, right? And she said, yes. And she asked, do you think life still is good? And he has to honestly answer, no, it's not. Not for me, not now. But he has to find it after she dies. Can life be good anywhere? And he goes looking for the Garden of Eden to think maybe there. So that's an experience that deals with that. Bridals of Armageddon is related to my fundamentalist upbringing.
Okay.
I was raised as a Baptist, and for part of that time in a fundamentalist Baptist church. And my dad was fundamentalist Baptist. And they talked a lot about Armageddon and the end times and all these things. And you have so many people that just think that Armageddon is going to happen in their lifetime. And it goes back to the Middle Ages, they were thinking that. And so I've dealt with people who have that concern. This book has to do with a man who believes it's God's commissioning him to start Armageddon, to make it real.
Oh, well, I think that job's already taken. I watch the news, and I think there's a lot of people way ahead of them.
Well, that's part of what I think this book is important, is it does relate to the news.
Mm-hmm.
And in the story, again, there's a romance, there's a very conservative journalist
Mm-hmm.
who has a nationwide column, and a liberal school teacher. And they argue about politics all the time. And of course,
I bet.
They fall in love.
Opposites attract.
And so in the process, they've got to, again,
Mm-hmm.
blend their visions and listen to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And the tagline of the book is, "Together we can find the answers."
Okay.
Listening to each other.
Mm-hmm.
So they learn to listen to each other in the process of trying to figure out, what do we do with this demagogue? How do we stop this?
Yeah.
And the book is officially, they call it dystopian, but it's not really dystopian,
Mm-hmm.
because dystopian generally ends up with everything going to hell in the handbasket.
Mm-hmm.
And in this book, there is a vision of hope.
Mm-hmm.
All my books, I try to put in a vision of hope. So that's a little bit about my experiences, life experiences, how they evolved into these 3 books.
That's interesting. I think it's always important. An author's always going to put some of their life experiences
Mm-hmm.
in their books, whether they try to explicitly or not. I think we
Yeah.
can't help but do that.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to bring those perspectives, because I think that's what makes each book unique.
Yeah.
So you've told us about the titles of the books. Do you have any new books that are be coming out soon?
Not soon.
Okay.
And
Well, what are you working on now?
Well, it's just a seed idea.
Okay.
So I've got about 50 pages in. It's a book called Soul So Dead.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes from a poem, Walter Scott,
Okay.
that says, "Breathes there a man with soul so dead, who never to himself has said, 'This is my own, my native land.'"
Hmm.
And it was a poem I memorized in 8th grade.
Wow.
And I still remember the words.
Yeah, that's impressive.
But in this story, as it's evolving, and again, this is a seed, this young man who has been taught to love his country desperately, looks around him at some of the corruption that's happening, and I won't name names, and he wonders, how can he love a country as it's dying, as it seems to be dying? That's the seed idea.
Okay.
I don't know where it's going to go. I find that when I write a character into a story, that character insists on becoming alive. And when they become alive, they argue with me. They'll say, "No, I'm not going to do what you were planning for me to do. I'm going to do what I would do."
Sort
as
of
a
like our
character.
children.
Yeah. The other day at the fair, a couple of people asked me, "Which of these books would you recommend? Which is your favorite?" And I said, "You want me to choose my favorite of my children?
Yeah.
Ain't going to happen."
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like saying, which of the kids you're going to put the mask on the plane first? It's like, well, I'm supposed to be me, but yeah. No, that is hard. And I think picking each book tends to have its own life.
It does.
And its own message and its own resonation. And the experience that you have as you're writing it is different.
Yeah.
And so it's very difficult to really say which is your favorite. And I people ask me that all the time. I always have a hard time answering. Now, tell us a little bit about some of your main characters in your books, and tell us about those characters and what influenced those, especially the ones that are maybe a little bit bigger than life.
Yeah. I like writing characters that I can identify with. I find that whether you're talking about a novel or whether you're talking about a movie or whatever it is, it's only as interesting to me, it only grabs me to the degree that I can identify with the characters and see myself in them somewhat. I like to write characters that are human, but find in themselves a quality beyond themselves. And sometimes it's a religious faith, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's something else. That something beyond themselves that gives them a resource they never thought they would have in the midst of the challenge they face. Those are the kind of characters I like to write. Searching for Eden. How does a person recover from the loss of a 14-year-old daughter? I deal with that all the time in the hospital. And I have to just wrestle with them. I can't say, well, here's the magic answer. But they do a searching. They do a searching for finding the goodness of life again. So that's what he has to do. And he does it along with other characters who are also searching for something. In Searching for Eden, he does it along with a archaeologist, a female archaeologist who has been abused in a previous marriage and is trying to learn to trust again. And there's a 14-year-old prostitute that he encounters and kind of adopts as a substitute for his daughter who's died.
I was just thinking that.
Yeah. And she is searching for her innocence again. And it's kind of like the Wizard of Oz. You know, they all come together going down this road to
searching for something different.
Something different, and each one needing something inside of themselves. And so on their way to their Oz, which in this case was an Eden that would give them some sort of revelation about themselves and about the world. So those characters, they reach for something beyond themselves. I don't write superhuman characters. I don't write the character who has got it all figured out and who, whatever they face, they always win. That's not a character I write.
Yeah.
And again, it's because I don't identify with that character. And I don't think many readers, some readers would like to have that person as a consolation that everything is going to be okay. But I think many readers looking also for that kind of character that they can identify with. In Bridals of Armageddon, I write characters that are kind of half of myself.
Okay, yeah. Which half?
Both. I have a conservative background, and I have a more progressive present perspective. So those characters that are arguing with each other are arguing within my head.
Got it. Got it.
That's how I write them. And the guy who becomes this demagogue, I don't like to write a evil character who is just evil and we can all look at and say, oh, that's an evil person. I like to write a character who's real. And so this character is real. He is a composite of many people I've known who had that conservative, literal, strict, viewpoint of revelation and the end of the world. And but loves his granddaughter desperately, had a wife he loved and misses terribly. I like to write real characters.
Got it.
And that's what he is. And Sons of Daughters of Toussaint, I write characters there that are based on the people I met in Haiti. You know, and
yeah, those are great experiences.
helping them to come alive.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. It sounds like your books all take place at different characters in different times and places and scenarios. If there's any one thing, now do you typically, you mentioned romance, is there any sexual or any other type of action that's included in the books?
Yeah, there is. I would say it's between PG and PG-13.
Okay.
You know.
Okay.
That's basically it. I think that you have to deal with the sexual issues of life. For me, as a male, my whole life long there's been a struggle between the sexual part of myself and the spiritual part of myself.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is a struggle that many men have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, I guess I can't speak universally, but I'd say many.
Mm-hmm.
And it ends up in the books too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they have to have that struggle, and you know, I think that's part of what people you don't want to hear about today. What is this sex thing, and how does it fit into our life stories, and how does it fit into things that happen, and so that's there.
Right.
It's not sex just as a physical act.
Mm-hmm.
But sex is part of a relationship and what it means for a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
so it's there.
Okay. Excellent. Now, do you have any? I want to talk a little bit about your process. I think it's always good for authors to. I find that audiences are always looking for how authors write. So every author seems to have their own rhythm. Some people get up each day and they have the certain hours that they write, and that's something to do every day. Others only write when they're inspired. Tell us about your process when you write. You said you had an inspiration. It's a core inspiration.
Yeah.
What does it look like to you to actually create a book?
Well, it's to start with that core inspiration. You know, kind of a what if.
Mm-hmm.
What if this were to happen? And that, like with Haiti, you know, when I saw the poverty, but the wonderful people in the midst of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned about Toussaint. I said, what if there was a descendant of Toussaint who saw this?
Mm-hmm.
What would he do?
Mm-hmm.
So that core question comes up. Developing it, I start with that core question, but you know, one of my most creative times, when I wake up at 3 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
and I get this idea, you know, in my head about something that's going to happen in this book that I'm working on. And I've got to make sure I got these things written down in a notes section. You know, I don't put them into the novel
Mm-hmm.
right away, but I'm saying at some point this is going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I write that down. And I you know, it fits in someplace.
Yeah.
You know, and so that becomes an important part. Now, as far as how often I write, and I have a full-time job,
Mm-hmm.
so that always is a struggle to be able to find that time, but I do try to discipline myself to do it every time.
Mm-hmm.
I say I try. I try is not a good word. You know, the old Yoda thing, there is no try. Either do or do not.
Yeah.
And so I most days will get in some writing.
Mm-hmm.
And I will develop it. Now, sometimes what I do is I write down things that are not going to happen at that point in the book, but it's going to happen down later.
Mm-hmm.
So I write it down someplace and then find out if there's a good place to fit it in.
Well, Keith, it's been wonderful talking with you. It's been a great. I've learned a lot about your books and your process, and you have some interesting characters and some interesting conflict. We've only got about 1 minute. Tell us just briefly, what's your experience with Author Event Network, and what compelled you to want to join?
You know, again, we talked about books being like your babies.
Mm-hmm.
I want people to love my babies.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
I want them to read them. And you talked earlier about, well, royalties. You know, actually for me, yeah, I like to get some money from my books, obviously. But even more than that, I want people to read my books. Yeah. I want them to read and enjoy my books. And I have limited marketing time. So I wanted to get together with other authors, like we do at Author Event Network, and to go to places where I can talk about my books and where I can talk with people. And maybe they buy my book, maybe they don't buy my book, or maybe they go on Amazon or someplace and buy it later. You know, that's fine, all that's fine, but at least they know the book. They know about the book. And that's what I've enjoyed about the Author Event Network is the opportunity to go different places at festivals. And I can't do it as often as I wish I could do it because I do have a full-time job. But I do it because I enjoy doing it and I enjoy taking that time. And it's nice to see somebody's eyes light up when they hear a story about this book that they identify with and say, okay, I got to read that.
I think connecting with the reader directly is one of the greatest joys of doing what we do.
That's right. I mean, I do a certain amount of internet marketing, I suppose, like any author, but first of all, I don't really enjoy it, to tell the truth, but it's less personal also.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Keith. And thank you for watching Meet the Author. Come to meet all the AEN authors during the summer event season in Seattle and Portland, and keep on reading.